This video I will be discussing the topic of social justice and political correctness. Now I don't know about anyone else, but I've seen this everywhere, whether it be in movies, TV shows, as well as cartoons. But now I have also seen it in comic books. That includes Marvel and DC, which have become, as much as I love those comic book companies, they become very much affiliated with social justice and political correctness propaganda, which I'm really starting to hate more than ever. And now you see that in video games. You do. I mean, because of the social justice atmosphere that we're living in and this political correctness, everywhere you go, this LGBT thing is shoved down our throats everywhere on TV. I understand if you have gay characters in a TV show or a movie, that's one thing. But to show that all the time, the way they present it is so forced down our throats. I feel like it's forced when they give them screen time as like, oh, gay couples on TVs. Like, it's so forced on the audience, and I hate that. I mean, I can't even watch a single episode of my favorite TV show without seeing like LGBT being couples or whatever being forced to the viewers. Not to mention, there's a lot of social justice propaganda I've been seeing. And this brings me to one example in particular. The sequel to the award-winning masterpiece, The Last of Us, starring characters known as Joel Miller and Ellie. Now, the sequel we have been awaiting as fans, and myself included, we have been awaiting a masterpiece for 11 years. But once the sequel of the masterpiece, known as The Last of Us 2, was released this year, we were sorely, sorely disappointed. And I say this because there's nothing but social justice warrior propaganda, full of LGBT, and it was very anti-male. All the men died because they seemed like disposable and obsolete. And the only strong characters that existed were the women, who were actually not even tough except for only one woman, who had like one biological woman who was like, you know, muscular as a bodybuilder, named Abby. And there was a boy that she rescued, but it turns out that he was a transgender. And they didn't make it very clear until you see that same game, until you see that same cutscene for the second or the third time. So they had some hidden subliminal transgender messages in there, which I thought was just bullshit, because social justice and political correctness, it's getting a voice in entertainment and in the entertainment industry. But it has absolutely no place in professional wrestling, which I'm seeing more of. And it has absolutely no place in comic books, cartoons, movies, TV shows, and especially video games. Because here's the thing, you lean towards entertainment for the sake of being entertained, not to be educated, or in this case, indoctrinated into this propaganda. And, you know, I'm sick and tired of the entertainment industry being so rigged and pushing this LGBT transgender agenda on all of us. We get it. It's 2020. Nobody's anti-gay anymore. Hating the gay is totally passé. I get it. I mean, just 2006, like, it wasn't accepted, but by the time 2009, 2010, 2012 came around, nobody was like, you know, oh, we hate gay people now. Nobody was like that. Everybody was like, okay, whatever. If you're gay, whatever. Let them live. Nobody cares. But I don't know why this LGBT thing that has taken over the movie industry and even the gaming industry and the comic book industry is being shoved and forced down our throats. I don't get it. It's indoctrination is what it is. That's what it feels like, because why would it be so forced? And they always make it seem like, you know, I mean, even in original stories like Superman, Supergirl, or Marvel movies, there's been a lot of social justice, not just in the movies, but also in the comic books. that involve like transgenders and LGBT. It's like these comic book stories originally had nothing to do with LGBT and transgenders or whatever. So they're shoving that down our throats. I don't have a problem with LGBT characters in movies or people in general, but don't shove it down our throats. I mean, because you're actually making them look like the laughingstock of the world, because they look so outlandish as characters in TV and movies. Really, you are. Like, it's ridiculous. And it's not even the right way to present them in that light anyway. So, I find it a little bit weird how a video game like The Last of Us 2 has social justice warrior propaganda. I mean, how do you go from a horror thriller video game, a video game that was known for its horror thriller genre, to somehow being equivalent to a soap opera / lesbian lesbian romance movie? How do you go from that? And the story had no connection whatsoever. There were so many plot holes, and they lacked character development, especially for that one character named Ellie. The only one who had character development was Abby. You know? And in the beginning, she wasn't even that likable to begin with. So, hate to say it, but the sequel was a disaster. It was full of social justice warrior messaging. And I feel like the director himself of The Last of Us sequel, no offense to him, he's a very good director, but he was being a cuck in this one. It's not a term I use very often. He was kind of being a simp because all the men died, and he made all the women, all the female characters were like the lead survivors. All the men died, as if they're nothing but pieces of trash and obsolete. Even the main character from the original guy was disposed of as a piece of garbage and beaten in the head to death like a dog, which was very disrespectful, and this is why a lot of the audience members hated the game. Because the way he died was so disrespectful, it's almost as if he was disposable. But honestly, bottom line of this video, we've had enough of social justice, propaganda, and political correctness everywhere we go. And we see it on billboards now, we see it in comic books, we see it in video games, cartoons with this propaganda. There was this propaganda cartoon called Shizao. A boy turns into a superhero named Shizao. So he basically transforms into a biological woman, a biological girl named Shizao. So which was promoting transgenderism, hence why the show no longer airs on Cartoon Network. And honestly, I'm sick and tired of the social justice, political correctness propaganda. Nowadays, you have your own opinion. They say like, oh, you're a bigot because you're a Trump supporter, or oh, you're a bigot because you're racist, or you know, you don't agree with anything, you don't agree with LGBT lifestyle, then that makes you a homophobe or whatever. You can't even have your own opinions anymore. I don't see why people should call themselves liberals if the other side is not even free to express their own opinions. They're called liberals, as in short for what, liberation? There's no liberation at all. You're not allowed to have your own opinion, and if you say otherwise, you're a bigot, and you know you might be censored if you're a public figure. So that tells you right there that in this establishment, no one wants you to have your own opinion. You're not allowed to be an independent or free thinker. You have the illusion of choice when it comes to voting, but people only vote Democrat or Republican. Nobody's being a free thinker in that regard. Nobody. So really, I find it a little bit strange how, with this so-called political correctness, you don't have the freedom to even think for yourself. And I'm sick and tired of it. And I'm done with the propaganda. Truly.